What's up, RB?
What's up, RB? It's good to be back in the RBTV podcast studio with the fabulous Kylie Lindquist.
Ooh, thank you.
I'm Dave Mannon. This is the second episode of What's Up, RB. Our focus today will be on a year in review with some of RB's finest teachers. I have a couple updates before we get going here. Oh, we always forget behind the glass here.
I didn't forget. I was just waiting for him to give me a minute to
my
say
recognition.
on the ones and twos.
Our finest dean,
Cara
Weinberg.
Good morning.
Our other dean right now is with students, actually getting them across the finish line, Alberto, and he's one of our finest deans as
Yes,
well.
Dean Hawkes with some students helping bring up their grades for the last part of the semester here.
Yeah, we need to bring him in so everyone can see him.
Yes.
Obviously, we have two new deans this year, and they've been out and about, so we want people to meet and greet them and use them. They are a great resource here at RB. Okay, some updates real quick. This Thursday, which I think the podcast is going to air this weekend, so you're not going to be able to hear this ahead of time, but we will just mention it. Tomorrow, we're doing a holiday drive-through, which the deans have had heavy, presence in forming that and whatnot. But we're looking to just have a community drive-through where students' families can come get a hot cup of hot chocolate, come through the Rockefeller student lot. We'll have some tables there where they'll get some cookie decorating kits, right, Miss Weinberg?
Yes, and special guest Rouser Claus
Oh,
will be there and
boy.
ready to take a picture with you.
So if you saw what our graduation looked like, we're going to try to do something similar where the cars will go through our student lot. There'll be some activity tables there where the students and sponsors will hand out some candy canes, and then the cars will drive through, stop at our auto shop, and then in one of our bays we'll have kind of a picture studio set up.
Yep.
And then Rouser Claus will be there. So if families or students want to take a picture with Rouser Claus, we have a professional photographer that's going to take those photos. And then they'll put that up on our website, and families and students can download those for free. So it's a pretty awesome event. We're looking forward to it. And then on January 15th, we're looking to do a winter wonderland walk where some of our athletic teams and extracurricular sponsors and clubs will be decorating snowmen.
Very cool.
We got donated from the community, been working with the parent group and some of that stuff. And we'll have a sign up and more information out here shortly on that event. But what we're looking to do is have students and families come in, walk the track. They can buy some Bulldog gear, get a hot chocolate. We'll play some music, just kind of like a social gathering in a
Awesome.
socially distanced, appropriate format.
I love that. That's very cool.
So that's it. One last announcement here, or I think I have two actually. Dave Mannon just hosted yesterday his 18th annual herpetologist. What do you want to call it?
It's herpetologist visit. He, for his applied zoology class, brings in Jamie from Reptile Rampage and gives students an opportunity to see the different kinds of animals that Jamie has sort of collected in his job as a herpetologist. Jamie's the guy that gets called in to the airport when somebody tries to smuggle a strange animal in, and then he ends up adopting them. I shook hands with my first raccoon during one of those visits in
Amazing.
applied zoology.
Very
So that's
cool.
pretty cool.
It's funny. There's a viral hit that came out of that
Yep.
class once, and then he
Jalen.
brought Jalen back to
Yes.
just kind of give a what's up
Very
RB.
cool. What's up, RB? Hey.
To the kids in the class. And so I know, due to COVID, they did it out in the auto shop
Yes.
classroom, which is kind of cool and unique. And they use some technology that we're going to be implementing here second semester
Yep.
for our classrooms for like classroom mics and things like that. So hopefully we could share out that link. It's a Google link he shared out, I think this morning. They did that earlier this week or whatnot. So, or yesterday actually,
Yes.
because today's only Tuesday.
Yep. It feels like it should be later in the week.
Okay. So,
No, today's Wednesday.
oh, it's Wednesday.
Yep.
It's
That's
day to
what's
day
up.
here.
It really is. Yep.
Jeez. Okay, I'm getting the 23 minute
Yeah, he's
sign
already-
left, so I
yep,
guess we got to
he's-
get going.
play
The
that
last
music.
plug I want to give is our Shenanigans show. That's
Mhm.
going to have a link that's going to go live. So check our website out for all the extracurricular activity links and things that are going on around here. Okay, let's get at it. Let's bring in Mr. Helgeson and Miss Lindsay Mynaugh. Marc is an English teacher on staff here,
Yes.
and you have a history with him, so we'll get into that in a little bit.
Sure.
And Miss Lindsay Mynaugh is a veteran math teacher, and welcome to the show.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
What's
Hello.
up?
Good
I will
morning.
stay
Thank you for
muted.
joining us.
You're welcome.
Hey, so today we're just going to talk about a year in review a little bit. We were just thinking about how crazy this year has been in these unprecedented times. I had to get that in.
Every time.
Uh-huh. And just want to pick your brain and hear what it's been like for you. I know for us, going back to, we were in a conference room in, I think, January, discussing all the things COVID, and then going forward, kind of what our plan was going to be. And then in March, right before spring break, that took a turn where we went remote. So let's pick it up right there. Just getting on your perspective, how did that change your instructional planning and execution? And just want to hear your thoughts on it. Whoever, to the audience.
Let's start with Lindsay. Lindsay,
All right.
Mynaugh, one of our instructional coaches, a math teacher. If I were going to set the stage for a panic when, somebody told me go home and learn from home, Kylie, I would say math would be the thing that would scare me the most. And I know that our math department is committed to making math not scare kids and help students through all of this. So, Lindsay, talk to me a little bit about how your department has really answered the call to how are we going to educate kids in math when they're not in front of us?
So one thing, I mean, this pandemic or not, like the thing about the math department that kind of drew me to the math department so many years ago is how everybody collaborates. So like that continues to ring true. So they, like last spring, I was teaching Algebra 2 along with my AP stats. And so we basically like divided and conquered. Like, okay, we have these homework assignments, this kind of short weekly check-in formative assessment thing, SAT questions, and we literally everyone had a job. And then we had like a time, like by 10 a.m. on Sunday, this needs to be in the shared folder in Schoology. So then we could put it out to our classes for the week. And that kind of mentality exists in all our courses. So, the regular algebra, honors geo, regular geo, everybody, they work collaboratively in that way. And so as, it started to get closer to the school year starting, regardless of how things were looking, we're like, we're not collecting papers. Like, we don't know who's going to be in our room and all of that. And so kind of making everything as much that we could digital and what that looked like, has been super impressive. We found, there's a lot of our classes that are using Delta Math, which is free for students. And it's a fairly small teacher subscription as far as like, what sometimes those softwares cost. So a lot of our classes are using that and kind of looking into Khan Academy and other things more. So it's been pretty cool to see how, even just like, this is how something works in algebra. Okay, wait, we can also use this in this honors pre-calc class, and not just keeping it within a course, but department-wide, the sharing has been awesome. I agree, learning math in general, like not in front of a person, I don't know that I would want to take a math class from home. But that's what we're doing. So
Yeah.
It's been awesome just to see how everybody has come together, and even just supporting each other with like, you can't do your office hours here, have your kids come on my link or whatever. And just like the sharing of the load, that's kind of how we always operate, and that's continued.
That's awesome. I know, we have two of you here with us. When you talk about collaboration, Lindsay, I've seen that in the math department. I have the fortune of having an office upstairs with the teachers. So, the math department is right in my hallway. I certainly see that. Collaboration speaks to this next guest very well for me. Mr. Helgeson, who is an English department here at Riverside Brookfield. I had the, let's call it fortune this morning, of working with Mr. Helgeson for 10 years when I was also an English teacher. So when Lindsay says collaboration, I know that all too well because I spent 10 years in the desk next to Mr. Helgeson. So I know that he has that kind of spirit as well. And it's interesting for me to be on the administrative side right now, watching someone that I taught so closely with do something that I never got the opportunity to do, or that I was never called on to do in this remote experience because it never happened while I was teaching. So Mr. Helgeson, how has this transformed what you do from an English perspective, working with kids on a screen instead of, sitting in front of you in your classroom?
Well, first I want to go back a little bit to kind of, echo some of what Ms. Mynaugh said in terms of collaboration and from a department-wide perspective. I think that the English department here at RB has, through our curriculum and through the many opportunities we get to know kids through their reflections and their journals and their kind of reflecting on literature, we get to know kids really well on a personal level. And I think our department, I would just like to say that I commend our department on doing a really nice job, checking on kids socially and emotionally, knowing kids, and through this difficult time, I know that it's been a point of emphasis in our department to really take care of that social emotional piece in English classes, checking in on kids, making sure everyone's okay. And that has been, kind of a focus for us, but also that collaborative piece that you talk about. I'm very fortunate to work on both the freshman and sophomore curriculum teams in the English department. And we are hyper collaborative, I would say. In a regular year, we are always, checking in with each other, planning with one another. But this year, it's really, English department wide. We are not just talking about what we're doing in the class, but this year going remote, that saying that you hear all the time, everyone's a first year teacher. It's true. And we are talking about how we're doing what we're doing this year. Like, how are you interacting with kids? How are you doing this group conversation? Is there a better way to do this? Is there a better way, to get this type of kid engaged if they haven't been engaged? So it's really just, from the department level down to curriculum teams, working with your partners, it's really a year where I'm proud to work with my colleagues across all the departments, because I feel like we are all supporting each other and really, focusing in on what's best for kids, but, constantly trying to make it better for kids through that process of collaboration.
That first year teacher thing, I always think of an analogy, right? If I put it something that I'm somewhat interested in, if you look at a basketball analogy, if somebody had told the Lakers at the beginning of the season that they were all going to start having to play with one arm tied behind their backs, how would they have, figured out how to shoot? They probably would have figured it out, right? But it takes a minute. So I can certainly appreciate that perspective.
On maybe like an ice floor where you can't walk
Sure.
or stand or run on.
Yes, right?
I'm glad you brought that up, because we've all been in, first year experiences, and I'm just trying to think about mine. And although you have a good content understanding, the ins and outs, how are you going to articulate this? Is your plan going to carry out and be effective? Is the learning going to be there? The engagement piece, struggling, all of that. And then on top of the management, and then you have the social and emotional piece that you hinted upon there with what you guys are doing in the English department. It's a lot.
It is a lot. And, we're talking about a year in review, right? We're talking about wrapping up the calendar year 2020, and we're looking to second semester. Now, we are slated to welcome students back into the building on January 5th, 50% of our population. Now, the first semester I know has looked a lot like figuring out this remote piece. And Mr. Helgeson, whatever camera you're on, can you pan to your setup for your remote learning in your room? Is that possible, or are you on it? Isn't it to your right?
Well, I mean, I can show you here. I hope Mr. Brooks is fine with me going back here. So going back to my desktop over here, and then over here, I've got my big fat microphone that I purchased. And then over here's my big screen TV that I have everything hooked in. There's a million cables everywhere. But yeah, I've turned this basically into my own little remote radio studio,
Sure.
studio. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's like this wall of electronics here that you're not, it's obviously not been teaching to kids, but it's, making it as comfortable as possible from an instructional angle to make it feel like they're here with me and I can be as natural as, as I am in the classroom normally. Like for me, in a regular classroom experience, I never sit down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't ever sit down. I'm always wandering around the room, checking in on kids. And here it's like, we've been here for 5 months, but at least I've got enough to turn to
Sure.
in this setting to make it feel like there is some kind of movement from my end.
And now, as we open the doors, Miss Mynaugh, second semester, you and I just recently worked on an instructional video together. We're taking all the things that Mr. Helgeson just showed us, right, where it's just remote. And now we're going to layer that, and he's going to have potentially as many as 50% of his students coming in, depending on which students are coming. So how is that adjustment, say, in the math department? How are you going to manage having students online at home and being able to teach still to the students that are in front of you? What are some of the ways is going to be possible in, say, the math department?
I think like looking at doing both is that like off the bat, we're going to have to establish like what's the best way to communicate while we're doing it before we're even really worrying about like the instruction piece. Because like in my classes right now, if I'm doing notes, I'll have the chat open on Zoom and kids can just unmute themselves and talk. But if they're not comfortable doing that, they'll just send a message to just me in the chat. And so then I'm like responding to those as I'm teaching. But, you know, the reality is that can happen with a student then sitting in my classroom with their hand up, and I'm going to answer that question. So kind of navigating that piece of it, I think is going to be what we have to figure out first. And then, you know, maybe that is, you know, doing some activities and kind of practicing together, because at any point that each kid's going to be the kid at home. And so, you know, making sure that we are, you know, trying to teach as much as we normally would, as, you know, normal as a math teacher can be, right?
You said it, not me, Miss Mynaugh.
I know. I chose this profession. I understand him a lot. But figuring that piece out, because, you know, making sure that basically the students are getting what they need. But the nice thing is that like in my class, I use a wireless slate for my notes. So I can just project that and that will remain, you know, it's what I'm projecting, like sharing on my screen, I can project that. A lot of the teachers in the math department use a document camera. That's the same, you know, it's just going to be on the screen instead of only on their, you know, the desktop screen or wherever it's at. So I think that like navigating that piece of it and kind of managing, meeting the needs of both sets of students is kind of where we're going to focus before we're really worrying about the content.
So Lindsay, let me pause you really quick. So the slate that you talked about, I just want people to realize the amount of technology that we're using. So the slates is kind of a normal practice anyway. So
There it is.
Yeah, in a normal school year, that is kind of like it's like your notebook.
It's like a hard mouse pad, essentially.
Yeah, and you write down answers to, you can, you know, put your whatever notes or lesson or problem that you're working on, and you can pretty much go through those steps in answering that problem. And then that is broadcast or projected up on a screen while you're walking around checking on students and whatnot. So having that synced up Bluetooth or however that works into your computer, then now projecting it while we have a live classroom mic, students in the classroom, and then also attending to the chat and conversations on Zoom, wrapping that all up, and then also instructing, engaging. And so I go back to like the first year teacher mentality, although at first it was like, man, this is tough, but I saw a change. Like, and I've been in the classroom watching a lot of the math classes too. And I've seen the change in comfortability and people just really hitting their stride with, okay, I can do this. Like, and understanding Zoom and how to interact back and forth, that takes a while.
Yes.
And I think our teachers have mastered that. And now they're ready, like, okay, let's move on. Let's really try to develop a really engaging environment for kids. And I mean, there's no correct answer. It's a really tough feat to accomplish, but our teachers are doing it.
Yeah, I've walked into several English classrooms, and Mr. Helgeson, I know that you do this. The breakout rooms on Zoom, people pardon my verbiage. Sending, thank you. Kids into solo even breakout rooms to give the teacher the opportunity to have that one-on-one conversation, because we forget all of the things that are just natural in a classroom. Mr. Helgeson, if a kid is doing a writing assignment in your classroom and they're in person, it's very easy for you to walk over to them, look over their shoulder, see what they're writing, and help them.
Right.
How do you do something like this in a setting like remote learning?
Well, you know, the breakout rooms, and you talk about individual ones, is interesting. We just did in sophomore honors, we did a full kind of practice AP essay. And, you know, through individual breakout rooms during class time, through having, you know, an extra, you know, bit of lesson here for other kids to be working on, and also utilizing that office hours piece, which I think is fantastic. And it's super helpful for those kids who, you know, feel like they need that extra help. But I've also used it to schedule regular conferencing times. I conferenced with every single one of my 2 sections of sophomore honors individually about their essay and revisions, and, you know, focusing on, you know, targeted revisions for them. So it's, you know, it's basically like, it's kind of finding the new normal, you know what I mean? Like the normal year is gone. Like, this is not a normal year. This is not a normal school year. Finding that new normal, and how do we utilize the schedule that we have, the technology that we have, our kids' expectations? Where is the, you know, the center of all of that to make it feel as normal as possible? And I love those breakout rooms and having those conversations with kids. It felt normal to have that kind of interaction. In a regular year, I'd be sitting one-on-one in the hallway, one desk across from another, having that conversation. And this year it was an individual breakout room. There's no interruptions. It's just, me and the kid, and it felt normal, for lack of a better word. And it was super helpful.
One thing I want to point out is I don't know if people realize in this community or in this area how fortunate we are with what we have, the resources that we can tap into.
Oh my goodness,
Yes.
yeah.
We were already established as a one-to-one school.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so getting
math department has had those slates for as long. I've been mesmerized by the math department using their slates since I got here.
And so in collaborating with, our colleagues downstate who are trying to manage, like, how do I give activity
Yes.
packets out and deliver those house to house, because we don't have a one-to-one curriculum
Right.
or initiative. And just how fortunate we are to offer, okay, 50% kids, let's come in, but also a kid that has close contact or, there's medically fragile and needs to stay home or whatever
Yes.
the case may be. We can do both here.
Yes.
And it's really, really amazing. And people need to take a step back and pause and say, wow, the accomplishments that we're doing
Yep.
in the classroom are pretty
Shout out
pretty amazing.
to both our IT department, because they keep us kind of plugged in, pun intended, and they keep us, rolling with the internet and all the tools that we have, the physical tools. But huge shout out to Bridget Wilmot, who is our instructional technology coordinator, who I know these two teachers have worked with. I know lots of our teachers have worked with Bridget to really make sure that they're optimizing whatever instructional technology is available to them. So as we wrap up here, we want to say thank you to Marc and Lindsay, not just for being here, but for being trailblazers in our building, for being leaders in our building when it comes to instruction. I've seen both of them teach. If I had to pick one, it would probably be Lindsay, but that's just probably because I had to see Marc teach for 10 years before we came to RB. So
I think it's you secretly love math.
let's not get carried away, Lindsay. Let's not get carried away. She always tries to teach me math on my whiteboard in my office. But we just want to say thank you. We know that this has been a hard year. And we appreciate you coming to kind of give us a little behind the scenes glimpse at what you're doing in the classroom. Thank you for that collaboration and for kind of highlighting that to let our listeners know that that's the spirit of RB right now. That's what our teachers are doing. They're working together to figure out the best way to really be there for kids and to do what's right by kids.
I don't have anything to add to that. That's awesome.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
That's good. Thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you guys have a happy holiday. Recharge, rest up, and see what 21 brings. But thank you guys for all you do.
Yeah, thank you both for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it. That's what's up, RB.
That's what's
See
up.
how I worked that in again?
So that's going to conclude episode 2. I'm sure we're going to come back in the new year and have some new topics. And I really love this format. Thank you, Ms. Weinberg on the back end, and Mr. Cordova and Mr. Prokes and
Mr.
RBT's.
Brooks keeping us honest with the times on those.
He's really on the time
cards.
today.
He really is on the time.
Appreciate
today.
it. So wish everybody in our community a happy holiday. Please stay tuned to the RB website for upcoming events, information, calendars, all that good stuff.
The best station around is RBTV. So we thank RBTV, Gary Prokes. We joke with him, but Gary Prokes, there's nothing like what Gary Prokes and our students at RBTV put out for our community and for our school. So we're very grateful to have this resource as well. I'm grateful to work with you, Dave Mannon. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
It's
See
been
ya,
fun.
RB.
Have a good one. That's what's up.